God, it looks like the portal they were opening in the comments is open. Okay, okay. Ah, yes. The classics. All right. In this video, we are going to continue our series of doing damage control on TikTok. In this one, we're going to be talking about fraudulent tarot readers. And actually, this is going to be a great hopping off point to talk about why tarot is awesome, why it's important and critical actually to the real Western magical tradition, and how tarot readers make everyone look bad. Fraudulent tarot readers make everyone look bad, and how, as a community, we need to see through their predatory BS. All right. Make sure to like and subscribe before we get started. Hit the subscribe button. We're releasing content on Fridays, and definitely leave a comment below. Let us know what you like, and let us know topics you would like us to cover. We're definitely reading the comments, despite the fact that a dark portal is slowly opening down there, and something's coming out. Just the tip, just a little bit, but it's opening. So join the comments down there and be careful while you're there. So it kind of seems like a big part of what I'm doing on this channel is kind of debunking superstitions and things that freak people out and kind of floating nonsense in the culture. I feel that I am in some ways in the same position as Padmasambhava when he came to Tibet. Padmasambhava, if you don't know him, this is one of the most legendary and colorful tales in all of magic. He was the teacher of Nalanda University, the old school version of magic.me, around 600 AD, something like that, in India, where he had learned all of the magical arts of India and taught Tantra, and Tantra just means magic in India. It doesn't necessarily mean sex or anything like that. Padmasambhava lost his job, however, and then he went with his consort, Yeshi Sogyal, a tantric adept, and they both rode on the back of a tiger into Tibet, which at that time was completely full of totally superstitious people who believed that demons were running everything and were constantly cursing each other and generally behaving like they were all on witch talk. So, Padmasambhava and Yeshi Sogyal, both legendary heroes of Tibetan Buddhism, rode into, let's just say, the physical representation of witch talk. And what happened? Oh yes, all these people came out of the woodwork, these shamans, these local tough guys, came out of the woodwork to say, "Yeah, who's this new guy? Let's see if we can turn him into a grease stain, yeah?"
Hey man, you're new to this turf. We don't take kindly to strangers coming around here.
And attempted to fling all of their most terrifying magic and spells and curses and hexes and demons and all that nonsense that these days only people who like industrial music are into. But they tried all that, and none of it worked. None of it worked at all. Why? Because Padmasambhava, being an enlightened Buddhist, understood that the fundamental nature of everything is emptiness and impermanence. That's a long way of saying that he understood that they were all delusional and making it up and reacting to fantasies in their own mind. And the only reason it worked is because everybody else in that country was agreeing that it worked. Herein lie many of the secrets of magic if you want to consider this story. The context that I want to talk about the tarot about today is the tarot. Let's just take tarot as kind of a representative of magic itself. Like magic, tarot dwells in this liminal space, this space in between things. And if you watch this channel, as you definitely should, and you should definitely like and subscribe, because it really, really helps out, you'll notice that I mention this from time to time. I talk about magic being in a liminal space, kind of in between different disciplines, in between religion and science in a way, in the last video. But let's look at tarot specifically and how that occupies its own liminal space, which is very indicative of the tradition as a whole. So tarot, on one hand, is a fortune-telling tool. It's this, thing that you've heard about psychics using, and you've heard about, fortune tellers using, and probably most people in our culture have a completely negative connotation with tarot. On the other hand, tarot is also a map of the universe, a model of the universe. It is in many ways the most profound metaphorical map of the universe that Western culture has come up with. Now, I want to make a very clear distinction here. Tarot and magic do not overlap with the world of science at all. And I'm never going to claim that. Magic and tarot are about subjective meaning. They're very much about how you approach your life. They're much more akin to philosophy or art or psychotherapy than anything within the scientific world. And so we're not talking about this as somehow representing material truths about the material world. What the tarot actually is, and turns out to be a phenomenally useful thing, what the tarot actually is a kind of map of the human soul. And if we want to take out supernatural language entirely, we could say a map of human psychology. And it shows that human beings are very, very similar. We have repeating themes, if you will, in our lives, in all of our lives. So tarot, in a way, you have 4 suits, and then you have the major arcana, 78 cards altogether. And yes, these are symbols, but they're symbols that can mean so many things. And like I've said in other videos, one of the worst mistakes you can make in magic is to make a one-to-one analogy between things. So a classic example, one of the first ones that people make, is the devil card means old Nick himself, Beelzebub, Satan, the hairy one. So think about this in terms of mandalas, okay? You've probably seen, a Buddhist or a Hindu mandala. Like, think about those Tibetan thangkas, those beautiful embroidered, I guess you could call them paintings, but they're really embroidery tapestries that hang off the walls. Those are meditation aids. They're kind of, let's take things like the Bhava chakra from Tibetan Buddhism, or the Mahakala, things like this. They are symbolic representations of, like something to meditate on, a symbolic representation of the universe in many cases. Classic Tibetan mandala, the Kala chakra, is meant to be a representation of the different realms of incarnation, of the passage of the soul through many levels of incarnation, and so on and so forth. In the same way, the tarot is Western culture's mandala, okay? But the really cool thing about the one that we made is that instead of it just being on a wall, or just being a preset thing that a priest class gives you, well, in a sense, it's kind of the same with tarot, but tarot was randomizable, it's interactive, it's also like a game. Of course, we get playing cards from tarot as well. But think about tarot like that. It's a map of the universe that's shuffleable. And what is life, really, but a universe that is shuffleable? I mean, every day we go through life and we don't know what card we're going to get. Maybe we get King of Swords. Maybe that's like cop pulls us over or something like that. Or maybe we get the 5 of Wands. Maybe, I don't know, there's like a riot in the street or something. Or the Tower, 9/11 happens. Oh, God. Well, we never know. Or the Star, you become famous on YouTube. Like and subscribe. But case in point, life is random, and it's kind of like life is like a box of cherries. You never quite know what you're going to get.
Box of chocolates.
And the tarot is a symbolic representation of that. So I hope you can begin to start seeing how valuable something like that is. So one of my goals on this channel is to dispel the fear that people have around magic. And a lot of that fear comes from superstition, from misunderstanding, and there's a lot of it. Religious people are afraid of magic because they think it's of the devil or evil or dark forces. Scientific people are afraid of magic, or not afraid of magic. They're often dismissive of it, because they believe it's non-scientific, and they're correct in that. It's just that they're seeing it as some type of truth claim on reality, where that's not what it is. It's closer to psychology or art. The psychology rejects it because they're like, what is this crazy insanity? This isn't psychology. And the art world doesn't reject it, but just simply wants to commodify it and make money off it. And of course, where's the spirit in that?
No.
Well, it is a spirit, but it's not the one we're looking for. Carl Jung recommended that his patients draw and work with mandalas as a way of better understanding themselves. That's basically all that magic is, right? It's a kind of like solo role-playing game or solo artistic process to use these tools and techniques, whether it's yoga or tarot or quote-unquote astral projection, which is really just guided visualization, to better understand yourself. These are all wonderful things that can really benefit our society, most particularly because they can give people the sense of meaning that they are sorely lacking. We're really in a bind in Western culture. The bind is God is dead, as Nietzsche said, and he wasn't rejoicing in that, by the way, because he felt that what would result would just be chaos and bloodshed. We've kind of, we've in Western culture, we've set aside religion. We've gone through the post-Nietzsche moment, but we don't really have anything to replace it with. Now, it's not like we should go back to religion, as religious people like to suggest, because it's not like we did it. It's not like we killed God. There wasn't a reason for us to kill God.
Have you been harboring gypsies?
Our home is always open to the weary traveler. Have mercy, my lord.
I am placing you and your family under house arrest.
So we don't want to go back to religion, but yet we still have that same spiritual void. We have those same spiritual needs that religion filled for us. I offer magic as a solution to this because you get the meaning, you get the sense of understanding and connection with the universe, but you don't have anyone telling you what to do or what to believe as you would have in a religion. Magic is DIY. So there's nobody hovering over your shoulder telling you what to do or trying to control you or trying to get one over on you. That's a pretty good thing right there. That's a pretty good sweet spot, I think. So many of you probably know Alejandro Jodorowsky, who's a very, very famous director, who's very well known for working with tarot a lot. One of the things that he's said in his work that is that I agree with is that, in a sense, working with the tarot is a way of building a soul. Now, that is supernatural language, of course, but I think that building a soul is a good way of putting it, and I think magic in general. The way that I would put that is just becoming a fully expressed human being, an individual, a fully individuated human who's on your path, the path that's right for you and nobody else, and that is fully engaged and alive and fully engaged in life. That's what building a soul is, and our culture doesn't offer people many ways to do it. Instead, our culture offers people passive entertainment, and let's be honest, religion for most of human history has been passive entertainment. I think that one of the reasons that people aren't religious anymore is not because their beliefs have changed, it's just that they found better forms of entertainment, because that's probably what religion was for most people. So here's where we get to the cognitive dissonance part. So tarot is this beautiful, beautiful, incredible, expansive system. Here's from the Crowley deck. So the magician, right? This is Crowley's deck. It's a phenomenal, beautiful, beautiful deck. So if tarot is this incredible thing, I mean, it's like the book of wisdom, the book of initiation, this set of symbols that can reveal yourself to yourself. If it's this incredible thing, then why is it just associated with kind of fortune telling, psychics, trash, being in the gutter, totally unserious, all of that stuff? Okay, this is what I want to talk about in this video. So like magic, tarot is in this liminal space. This space in our culture that nobody looks at, that nobody takes seriously, that everyone passes over. Magic is basically the same. Maybe you can, but just imagine being in my position and spending 25 years of my life, more than 25 years now, immersed in this incredible, incredible, colorful, magical thing called the Western magical tradition, which, is just will connect you with all of these beautiful spiritual cultures from not just Western culture, but from around the world, that will connect you with your own history, your own sense of yourself. It will bring out this heroic sense that you can change the world, that will fully develop you and all these faculties that you never knew you had access to, that will allow you to connect and meet some of the most brilliant people you could possibly imagine. So imagine, and then, but the Venn diagram of where that world overlaps with mainstream culture is just like this liminal trash space. It's like in the gutter, right? So it's like, imagine like basically feeling like you have the keys to existence for your entire life. Like I had the good stuff, and the way that the only place that you can find to talk to people about this stuff with is freaking tarot cards. Okay, I mean, I shouldn't complain, because I think that this is actually part of the path of magic. I'm sure that many people watching this find themselves in the same boat as me. Even to use the word magic itself automatically marks you as a fool, right? Like the tarot fool. It automatically marks you as an unserious person, as a ridiculous, potentially crazy, maybe even dangerous person. I think that protects it in a way. It kind of helps it to hide in plain sight. It also keeps us humble because you really can't go through life saying that you're into magic and take yourself that seriously, because certainly nobody else will. So I think it's a little bit in its own way like a vow of poverty or a vow of silence that some religious orders take. The details of human existence change. The details of human life change based on what time period you're in, who you are, where you are in the world, what your culture is, what's happening in history at that time. The details change, but the overall pattern, the texture, the character of human life does not. Of course, everyone's deck is shuffled a little bit differently, but the tarot is a pretty good representation of the deck that we're all playing with. So for that reason, the tarot works, and it has worked all throughout history and always will, because it's helping us essentially to step back from our life and abstract it a little bit. And this is always helpful, to step out from the details of your situation and to see the overall pattern. And this is what tarot is amazing at. It's not predictive necessarily. It's not 100% accurate, but that's looking at it to be accurate or predictive is, I think, the wrong way to approach it. It's kind of like externalizing yourself into a card spread to better understand yourself. It's like an artistic process, a mirror that you're building to better understand who you are. So tarot is huge. It's probably never been more popular. It's extremely popular with Gen Z kids. And so I always see tarot saturated all over social media, obviously TikTok and Instagram and all of this stuff. It's visual. It's perfect for the age of social media, and the kids love it. Of course, basically none of them understand what it is, its proper use, its proper attributions, the fact that it is a tool of initiation that was used in occult groups like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the AA and others. They don't have any of that context. They actually, it's like they're kind of using this without reading the manual. They didn't read the manual. Now, I'm not knocking that. I'm really not. It may sound like I'm being dismissive. I'll knock the scammy stuff, and we'll talk about that because there is a lot of scammy stuff. But I'm not knocking the fact that people are interested in this. Far from it. It's wonderful that so many people are getting interested in things that could potentially lead to them becoming better rounded people with more wisdom, and we definitely need that in the world. I'm just here to say you can go deeper with this if you want. Okay, it's like you can get the very, very surface interpretation, just look at the pretty picture, look at the cards, or do a basic kind of like quote unquote tarot reading with it. But there is a deeper tradition. We've got people like, for instance, Paul Foster Case, one of the great adepts of tarot, who started a group called the Builders of the Adidium in Los Angeles. It's still there. He's buried in Glendale Cemetery, right next to where I used to work. These are his versions of the cards. So he had a whole order that has, I think they have something like a 10, 15-year correspondence course where you just spend a year meditating, something like that, meditating on each of the tarot major arcana and kind of opening up that level of yourself, if you will. This is profound. I mean, this is a true spiritual path. This is in many ways the core of the Western path, because the Western path uses also tarot cards to represent the paths on the tree of life. So we use the tarot to broadly simplify. We essentially use the tarot as a database, as a mnemonic database for the entire world's spiritual teachings and wisdom traditions. But so that instead of like having all that printed, you can just pull up the magician card and immediately you can think of everything that relates to ceremonial magic, all of that. Death, we can think of, obviously that links to Buddhist meditations on death and that type of thing. So, oh yeah, by the way, if you ever get the death card, it means you're going to die that day. So we can talk about metaphors and things like that, but if you get this card, your head will light on fire. So in my opinion, the world's greatest tarot master is Lon Milo Duquette. He's a grand master. He's been teaching tarot for a long time, and he's really, really good. He's written a bunch of books on it, and he teaches it from the perspective of the Western tradition of the Masonic, Golden Dawn, Thelemic, the actual tradition. And I actually have created a course with Lon Milo Duquette called The Magic of Tarot. You can see it. It's out now. And he gives you the entire thing. He gives you everything you could ever want to know about tarot. He gives you all the actual attributions. He shows you how to do readings. He shows you how to use it as a meditative tool. He shows you how to do astral path workings with them. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff in that course. It is based around the Thoth Tarot deck, which is not everyone's deck, but I think that it in my opinion, that's the best one, but not everyone shares that opinion, and that's fine. He gives you everything that you need to know. And that is, in my opinion, and I am biased, but I didn't teach it, is the greatest course on tarot on the planet. It's phenomenal. You can get everything from it. So that's there for you. It's affordable. It's easily accessible. You can take it on your own time. You can use it on any device. But if you're interested in tarot, just take the time to learn the attributions. You can take that course, but whether you take that course or not, it doesn't have to be that one. If you're interested in this material, please take the time to actually learn the tradition. It's great to start with just the basics, but take the time to learn the actual attributions. It will pay off. Because then when you're reading these things, it's complicated at first, but then it becomes simple. And then when you're looking at these things, you actually know what you're looking at. In addition to knowing the whole, like the sacred and the profound and the heights of the traditions, I also know all the trashiest bits too, because believe you me, I made it my job to know everything there is to know about this topic before I could teach it. And that means I went into some shady spots too. One of those is the psychic world. I actually worked for a psychic company for 4 years. It was like a corporation. I won't name it, but it was one of the biggest corporations that does psychic hotlines.
Good evening.
Can I get a psychic reading?
Honey, you don't call her asking for stuff like that.
A wayward magician adventuring through life and occasionally blowing himself up and hitting brick walls sometimes finds himself in bizarre situations. And I've been in a lot of them, and I'll probably be telling you all kinds of hilarious stories on this channel, but this is definitely one of them. I ended up working at a psychic hotline for a while, and so I got to see the inner, I think I was doing their blog editing their blog for them, so I got to see kind of the inner workings of that industry. Surprisingly, and I actually was surprised, a lot of psychics are very legitimate, I will say. Now, whatever that is, maybe it's part cold reading, part understanding of human psychology, part therapy skills, but there's something there that, I think that a lot of the people who actually do that work are actually quite sincere. The psychic industry is also full of all kinds of scams, a lot of which have now migrated to TikTok.
If your relationship is important to you, then you'll want to watch this.
If this is ending up on your For You page, please listen.
If this video found you, trust that you're supposed to hear for what I'm about to tell you.
If this video found you, it's for a reason.
Really common scams in the psychic industry include claiming, but this is all over the world, by the way. This one's really big in Africa. Telling people that they have a curse on them and that you're the only person who can remove it, and they have to give you $600 to remove the curse.
On February 25th, be very careful. There is a hex on you. This is why you have been having stomach problems and fatigue.
Yeah, no, there's no curse. Just stop believing in curses and you'll be fine. Another one that's even kind of more sinister, unfortunately, is preying on people's need to speak with deceased relatives or loved ones, pretending to be that person. That's where it starts to get really gross, like really gross, in my opinion. Once people start getting into like the talking to deceased relatives thing, that is extremely unethical, in my opinion, and is predatory. It's just preying on people. A lot of magic is just the clever manipulation of confirmation bias. It's not all of magic, but it's a lot of magic, and people work themselves into a real tizzy about this that's frankly often just embarrassing. What is confirmation bias? Long story short, confirmation bias means that if you're intentionally looking for evidence of something in the world, you'll find it. The reason is the world contains infinite information. So if you tell your mind to look for red, you're going to start seeing red everywhere. You can try this at home, classic magic experiment. Look for the number 23. You'll start seeing it everywhere. You'll start seeing it in the most ridiculous places.
Tell yourself it's just a number.
Is it because something supernatural is going on? No, it's because you were always seeing 23. It's just that you weren't registering it because you weren't looking for it. Life is like an endless forest, an endless complex field of information in which you can see anything that you look for.
So sometimes I'll ask an expert to put themselves on my Pinterest even though I haven't looked anything up about them on Pinterest yet. So I asked the Starion to do it, and lo and behold, I kept scrolling, and then, bam, there he is.
So when people do quote unquote magic spells, and they start to say, let's say I'm going to summon the god Thor. Okay, well now they start seeing hammers everywhere and Thor and, the Viking logos and things like this. And they're like, oh, I've summoned the god Thor. Well, maybe, okay, but realistically what's going on is confirmation bias. Don't get me wrong, I'm not disproving magic. I think that magic gets really interesting when you start from disproving all the stuff that's not true, and then you see where you can get. So, for instance, okay, great. So magic is just confirmation bias. Can we use that to our advantage? Can we tell ourselves to look for opportunities for money? Let's just take a crass example. Yeah. Can you tell yourself to look for, the next career move you want to make, for instance? Yeah. Can you tell it to look for artistic inspiration? Absolutely. And your mind will find that. It will find it in the essentially contentless patterns of infinite information that are around us all the time. Now, we can approach this the way that I was talking about, where we look at wealth and say, this for me brings up all of my ideas about what a wealth and abundance and my relationship to money. And if I meditate on this card, perhaps, I will begin to have an inner dialogue with myself around my whole kind of inner feelings about money, and all the negative and positive feelings can come up. And then basically, I'm just pulling out that part of my psyche, the money part of my psyche, and examining it so I can just examine that part of myself. So, in normal psychology is like, tell me about your mother. Well, maybe I want to talk about something else today. Maybe I want to talk about my relationship with wealth. Well, let's pull that out. Or power. What's your relationship to power? Or of flying money. So with a 20-sided die in it or something. But so you can see how somebody who understands abstract and symbolic thinking, for them, it would be a completely innocuous tool of essentially self-directed meditation. Whereas somebody more sinister, like somebody who's cold reading or a psychic or something like that, can say, oh, well, you're going to lose all of your money unless, you pay me to take a curse off or something like that.
Use and save this audio even in private to remove the hex. Karma is real and it exists. Don't risk bad luck.
And you can see how somebody who's maybe not so hip to confirmation bias, they might then leave that reading, go out into the world convinced of this story, and start seeing evidence constantly that somebody's cursing them for all their money to go away. And then what are they going to do? Run right back to that psychic and pay them the $600 to remove the curse, which never was real in the first place. Actually, in a sense, you can say that fortune teller put quote unquote, that curse on that person by simply convincing them of a story and letting their mind make it real.
But first, make the heart red and click the plus for divine connection.
So speaking of predatory, the people on TikTok, this is to a whole new level on TikTok, to the point where they now have AI psychic scams.
While you sleep, everything in your life is about to change. Your life will instantly be 100 times better. Do not risk the skip, because when you wake up, you'll have a message on your phone. The one you've been waiting for is ready. Type yes in the comments to claim.
There's all kinds of new psychic scams on social media. I have, psychics that I follow. For instance, Matt Oren, who's a very, very popular, well-known one, who I had on my podcast, will have people copy their profile, make fake profiles to represent people in the magic community, because I guess doing tarot readings is big business online. So there's all kinds of scams out there. So, of course, another stock in trade of all psychic scammers is cold reading. And cold reading is essentially somebody presents themselves to you and you just start throwing out generalizations that could be true about anybody and just kind of like reading. They're essentially just taking a stereotypical or prejudiced read off of your initial impression of that person and throwing out things about them that you think might be true, big generalities, until you get a hit, and then kind of refining down on that while pretending that you're tuning in on psychic wavelengths.
As you want something.
So here's an example of that. We will look at this picture of Richard Dawkins from The Magic of Reality. Let's do a cold read on Dick Dawkins here. Let's see. So if Richard Dawkins came to me and I was a cold reader, I could say, well, you're very I see that you're very confident. I see that your career is going well, but and you're looking into the future and seeing a bright future ahead, but yet there's a dark shadow upon you. You have maybe professional concerns. Maybe somebody's trying to get you canceled. Maybe Twitter is stressing you out. Well, I do actually know these things about Richard Dawkins, but obviously you could just like start pulling things out and saying things, and once he confirmed something, then I could just kind of go on it from there.
I see a bicycle.
Yes! Is it okay?
It's okay. It's okay.
That's an example of cold reading. Think about it this way. We look at these TikToks, they're sending these TikToks out to what, millions of people? Okay, well, maybe most people will scroll past it, ignore it, think that it's silly, but I guarantee you maybe 1% won't. And 1% of a million people is 10,000 people. That's a lot of people. Right? And maybe of those 10,000 people, maybe 1% of those 10,000 people will actually end up getting scammed for like $600, $1,000, $2,000 on Cash App. Who knows? Scams are getting more prevalent and way worse since COVID. And scams are really tragic. They're really sad because people need that money. People can easily be scammed into giving away their life savings, taking out extra mortgages on their house. And there's more scams than ever out there. So these things, we should look out for them and we should be aware of them as a community. So let's say you send out a silly TikTok like this, and okay, 1% take it seriously, 10,000, and 1% of those get scammed. Well, you just scammed 100 people, let's say out of $1,000 each. That's a lot of money you just ripped off. Don't do this. So you can see how these can become very, very pernicious. I mean, some of these just look AI generated. You can see how pernicious that can be for society.
You are being betrayed by a short woman.
Here's the other thing, right? A lot of us can say, well, I would never fall for something like that. Well, here's the thing. You're not always in the same emotional state at all times in your life. And most people, in fact, all people, will go through periods of severe hardship, loss, trauma, things like this. They will lose loved ones. These are times where people can be vulnerable and at times desperate. And particularly when people become isolated, as we recently all were, particularly when people can end up in their own reality tunnels on the internet, this can get pretty dangerous pretty quickly. If you're in a vulnerable position and somebody comes along telling you what you want to hear,
You want something.
particularly if you're emotionally distraught, particularly if you don't have a support network, people around you, things like that, it can be a lot easier to get taken than you might think, unfortunately. And this is where this stuff gets really scammy, really gross, just scumbaggery, and we don't want this stuff around, and it makes everyone look bad. But I mean, just imagine, this is how unglamorous we're talking about. Just imagine, like, let's say an old woman who lives by herself, whose son has died, and some psychic calls her up randomly or gets through to her online on Facebook and convinces her that he can talk to her son, and she just has to give him $100 every time, and just like milks this person, this woman who doesn't have anyone around her for the remainder of her life savings that she's not going to get back. That's tragic. That's tragic. And so, this stuff really, it hurts me to even hear about. And so, it's important to make people aware of this. And also it reflects badly on everyone else. And yes, we can kind of, embrace that to some level, but it's just bad all around. Also, of course, Everyone in this world wants love. Everyone wants to be significant. Everyone wants a special destiny. And those are also things that cold readers can really prey upon, particularly, really preying upon people's need for love, telling them that their twin flame is out there and or convincing them that there are people, secret admirers that they can contact if they just pay the psychic and so forth.
You had your suspicions. Do not let her ruin the chance to be with your twin flame.
That's also really scummy. All right, so that's going to be about it for me. Make sure to like and subscribe, hit the notifications bell. We're releasing new content on Fridays, so make sure you get notified when that comes out, and definitely leave a comment. The comment section is going crazy. They're opening some type of dark portal down there. God knows what's coming out. There's only one way to find out. All right, lots of love. See you next time.